everyone. Good evening. I'm Karen Fong Donahue. I'm the owner and founder of the Ruggers Edge. I'm so excited that you've decided to join us this evening and learn how to get ready for summer rugby camps, especially, now that things are starting to open back up a little bit. I'm seeing more and more programs announcing that they are going to go ahead and have summer camps. That's really exciting. I know everyone's been missing out on that. So I thought this was a really good time to just start going over, just some things that I, often go over with my students, of some things to help them get prepared to, get the best out of, attending those camps, and then also how to stand out, how to really make sure that you're making an impact while you're there, especially if you are attending a camp that's hosted by a college or university that is in the process of recruitment as well. So obviously, as we're going through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. Like I said, I was going to do a PowerPoint, but honestly, like with a bit of a smaller group this evening, I didn't want to make it so formal. So I do want to make sure if you are on this session with me this evening, this time is for you. So please make sure to feel comfortable. There are no silly questions. Ask away. I have an agenda here, some things I want to make sure to go over with you. But I want to make sure that I get your questions answered. A little bit about me, in case you didn't know, as I mentioned, I started the Ruggers Edge. Wow, it seems like a little over almost 10 years ago, and we've definitely seen a change in the way that the college rugby landscape has grown and developed over the last couple years. And obviously the college rugby camp space has really adapted to that and grown. I think in other sports with football and soccer and things like that, the idea of a summer camp being the place to be seen is pretty common, and rugby is still kind of catching up to that. So you're going to see that there aren't as many camps as maybe in other sports, but you will start seeing them pop up. I do have a list on the Ruggers Edge website. If you go on there, I believe under resources, you will see summer camps. And as things are starting to become live, I am updating that weekly. So for example, the BYU camps just announced that they're going to be live this summer. So those dates are updated on there as well. So please make sure that you check that pretty regularly. And then any updates I have, I of course do post online. So, okay, without further ado, let's kind of just jump in. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of pretend at this point that you're a family that has already picked a camp. You've decided that, this specific camp, whatever the case may be, in your local area, or that you're going to travel, you're going to go ahead and go to a college rugby camp. What are the things that I would advise? So number one, student, and by the way, I do want to make sure if you have a student sitting near you that they're the ones paying attention. Student, if you're the one watching this, please make sure that this directive is for you. I want you to be prepared. And I know that sounds really silly, but I can't tell you, all the camps that I have attended in the past. I have been to, obviously I've been an academic advisor at the U.S. Collegiate Development Camp that was hosted at Dartmouth. I've been at the Nike Rugby Camp here at CU Boulder, at Stanford, the one in San Diego. So I've been to a lot of camps, and you may or may not be surprised how unprepared many of the student athletes are. And as I'll mention later, someone's always watching. Someone will see what you're doing and take that into account, right? It's not the thing that's going to make or break whether or not you get recruited, but it's something that, as you're getting to know students and student athletes, and you're, if I'm a college coach, I'm starting to picture, will this person be a good fit for our team? We do want to make sure that this person is prepared. So one of the things as you're getting prepared, especially if this is, a residential camp, which I know there aren't that many happening this summer. There might be maybe later in the summer, but for now, even if it is a day camp, if you're having to travel, make sure you take some time. Pull out a packing list. If you don't have one, write it out. What are the things you're going to need day to day? A lot of the camps will send a pre-packing list, so a list for you to be aware of what are the activities you're going to be doing and how might you want to be dressed. So for example, if you are going to have a weightlifting session and also field sessions, make sure you have the right, shoes for the lifting session. Make sure you have the right cleats for, the field session. Is the field turf? Is the field grass? Do they ask you to bring different colored for jerseys? Do they ask you to make sure that you bring, obviously you would bring your own mouth guards, you would bring your own scrum caps, anything like that. I would make sure, if they were me, I would set everything out, make sure you have everything before you pack it in. When I go to these camps, or when I'm a referee, I have a checklist, and every single time, even though I've done it hundreds of times, I check things off to make sure I have everything, because you'd be surprised how often you're nervous, you're excited about this camp, and you just kind of forget something. You don't want to show up to that first training and not have your mouth guard. Or I had a student once showed up, oh my gosh, forgot my contacts. And now they're awkwardly having to try to do some practice, but they're in glasses and they can't really wear them. So, just all those little things you want to make sure you're prepared for. Take a look at the schedule again. So see what you're doing every single day. A lot of the camps obviously build in time for meals and things like that. But if to be extra prepared, I would pack some extra snacks for some, extra bit of, energy as you go through the day, especially if these are long camp days, things like that. I would also strongly recommend that you bring a watch. Now, if you're about to go into training, maybe take it off. Maybe you're not comfortable wearing a watch all the time. But again, most camps that I've seen, it's run on a pretty strict schedule. So it might be, okay, you need to arrive at this location at 8 a.m. You need to make sure if you're in group A, you are over here by 9. If you're in group B, you're over here by 10. The schedules can get pretty complicated. And most students rely a lot of times on their phone for kind of keeping time. So I always find it really refreshing when I see a student athlete who has a watch, who is able to keep time and understand, okay, look, I've got to make sure that I get over to the dining commons by this time because I need to be back at the field in an hour. So a lot of the camp process, especially at a university, is to see a little bit of how students figure things out, right? It is a really good indicator of how they're going to be if they're going to be a part of a varsity level team. If we give you a schedule, can you follow it? Or are you someone that coaches will have to babysit throughout this whole process later on? Okay, any questions about that? Go ahead and put that in. I'm going to keep moving on. All right, so number 2, okay, the thing I really want you to think about as you're getting prepared for this camp. So let's say you're about to go to a camp where you're a rising senior, right? So you're a junior now, you're heading into this summer. This is going to be your critical year, right? This summer camp where coaches get to see you live, especially if you haven't had a lot of games this year and none at all because of COVID. This is your chance to shine. So, it's April now. If you have a camp in July, that gives you a couple months. I want you to start thinking about being as fit as you can, being as conditioned, as strong, all those things that when you show up at camp, coaches look at you and they're impressed, right? You are undeniable. They look at you and think, this is a player that's going to help us win. If we bring him on, he or she is going to be the one that is going to change the way our program is going to run. So what I don't want is, oh, okay, whatever, I've got this camp and I'm just going to dilly-dally and I'll be fine. I'll run a mile here and there. You almost want to think about a recruit camp like a really big game or a really big tournament. So, you do want to build up to that camp, right? I'm not saying go do a marathon run, a crazy sprint session the day before. You do want to make sure you're ramping up properly and then backing down properly so that when you get to the camp, you are really like firing at your peak, right? You've got your quick feet, you've been working on your fitness, you're not going to be gassed after, an hour of training, right? So you do want to make sure that you're physically in the mind space that you can show off, that you can be your best. Again, leading up to a camp, the nutrition piece, the hydration piece, make sure you're taking care of your body. The last thing you want is right before you get to a camp, you come down with a cold or come down with the flu, something like that, right? You, again, want to make sure that you're showing up at camp and you are being your best self. So give yourself every opportunity to show up and make an impact. The other thing as well, part of that whole piece about strength and conditioning that often gets kind of pushed by the wayside is sleep. So especially, let's say you're on the East Coast and you're going to go to the Cal Berkeley camp in California, which is a pretty big time difference. couple days before, and we do this, by the way, when I was an international player, when I was a referee and we're traveling a lot, the couple days before, you want to start adjusting your sleep schedule so that when you get there, if you have to be at a field at 8 a.m., you're not going to be lagging, because to your body, it feels like it's, 11 a.m. You're like, oh, I'm ready for lunch, right? Or something like that. So you want to start kind of adjusting your schedule and your eating habits, or if you're going vice versa, especially if you're going West Coast to East Coast, that really does affect your body and your performance as well. So normally about a week ahead, you start kind of backing down your times of like sleep and waking up. So you want to make sure you're somewhat adjusted to the time difference, so it's not a huge shock to your body. This actually, I would say it applies a lot to tournaments and games too. You want to start trying to get your body adjusted to that cycle, so again, you can perform the best you can. All right, let's see if there's any. Nope, nothing. So hopefully things are going well out there. You guys are all getting the information. All right, I have a lot of stuff, so sorry that I'm just gonna kind of throw this all at you at once. Number 3, work on your basics before camp. So look, there's, you might be doing drills you've never seen. You're going to be with players you've never been around. And I know that that piece can be really intimidating. But think about the basics, right? Rugby is really about pressure. It is about running, passing, kicking, defense, right? The main things. Yes, there's obviously all these other things that you can start throwing in there, but the basics, right? Coaches are going to look at you and think, can I coach this player up to what we need? They don't expect you to show up as a junior, right? And be able to walk onto their squad. They want to know that you have the basics down, that they can add on all those things, that the way they run their offense or the way they run their defense or whatever the case may be. But they want to know that you can run, right? You can run a hard attacking line, that you can, run a nice switch or a loop, or you understand as a flanker, what kind of angles to run for good defense, right? So the basics. And what that means is, let's say you're not in practice time now. When you're on your own, out onto a field, you and a friend, you're at least doing some basic passing. How long can I pass? Can I do pop passes? Can I do short passes? Make sure that those passes are accurate, and make sure those passes are, to the best of your ability, where you want, so targeting, you can do those practices where you've got like an X on the wall, or you've, set up some cans and you're throwing the ball. You want to make sure that you can do all those things when you're not under pressure, so that when you are under pressure, when people are looking at you, it feels comfortable, that it's not like all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, everyone's watching me and I've got to make sure I hit this long skip pass. Okay. So the passing, the running, the defense, that'd be really good to just kind of prep your mind for those things. The 4th thing I wanted to mention, which I think tends to get overlooked because most players think about a summer, athletic camp, and they're really focusing on the athletic part. So they might get all the other things I've already mentioned, right? Being fit, being strong and rested and all that kind of stuff. They're super prepared for that. But let's say you are showing up at a college recruit camp. The thing that most students tend to forget is, separate from the rugby, you're still looking to attend this university or college. I would really make sure that you take some time to research this school and understand beforehand, why do you want to go there? What is it you're looking for? If you happen to be sitting at lunch with the head coach and he or she says to you, so tell me why you're thinking of applying to this college or university. If your first answer is rugby, okay, that's fine. It's a rugby camp. We'll let that one go. What else, right? You're coming here to get an education. So it would make sense. And I'm hoping you have something in your back pocket where you can say, you know what? I attended a couple virtual touring options. I did the admission info tour. I did the virtual tour. I also did a panel on engineering. I'm really interested in the electrical engineering program you have here. I'm really looking forward to it. Now that, if I was a college coach, shows me you're really taking the time to understand what this college and university is about, and that it's going to be a good fit, so that if they do recruit you, if they give you an offer, chances are likely you will accept, right? So you want to think about it. If you were in the coach's shoes, they don't want to waste their time, right? They have limited amount of time to do recruiting. It's one of the parts of jobs, every coach I talk to, they're like, it eats up the most time, and they're doing it on top of day-to-day practices and game plans and planning and games and blah, 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 right? They've got lots of stuff going on. Recruiting takes up the most time, and they want to try to make it as easy as possible, right? They'd love to find that player that wants to go to their institution, that when they make that offer, they say yes, and it all goes smoothly, right? So you want to make it easy for them. So get to know that school beforehand. No, you don't ask those basic questions you can find online. So like, what's the size of the school? What's the most popular majors? What is the, is it a semester system or is it a trimester, or a quarterly system? Those are all things you can find online. So do that before you get to the camp. Okay. All right, so tied all kind of together, at all of the camps I've been to, it's really easy to see which players are showing their good character and they're being their best self. So I'm not asking you to not be yourself, but I really want you to think about how can you truly present yourself in the best possible light. So a couple things. When you're at camp, be early, help set up. Help others. I often see, for example, when I was at the camp at Dartmouth, I would notice the players that, let's say we had a meeting in one of the common rooms. I saw which players came in eating snacks and leaving all their trash there. I also saw the players that picked up after the other players, or straightened up chairs, or offered to help me carry my bag if I had a really heavy bag filled with, a bunch of resources and stuff. Those are really nice things. I noticed those things, and guess what? I mentioned that to the other coaches that I saw. And I promise you, when you're at camps, everyone notices. Something that I remember one of the camps I was at that was mentioned is Coach Alex Magleby, who was the former, head coach at Dartmouth, and he was, a long time just standout Eagle, and then working a lot with the MLR Free Jacks right now. He had learned something when he was at the Olympic Training Center of, they're working a lot with Paralympic athletes, and that there were athletes there that were visually impaired, so something that they always noticed is when you're in a room, do return the room to the way it used to be, because the next meeting that's coming in might be athletes that are visually impaired. They're used to rooms being set up a certain way. So if you leave a chair out, obviously you're now putting them at risk, right? So he actually would purposefully pull out a chair and leave it just to see who would push it back in. And I think that's a really interesting little nugget of like, the player that pushes it back in is the player you want on a team, right? That's the guy or gal who is showing you, even if no one's really watching, they're watching out for everyone else. They're watching out for their team. They're not only thinking about how do I make myself look good just for myself, just for my selfish purposes. So definitely, be your best self. The be early piece. If you're supposed to be at the field at 8, you better be there at 7:45, or you should be trained, ready to go, cleats on, mouth guard, scrum cap, all that stuff. You should have been taped, everything ready to go at 8. You're not showing up at 8, getting everything together. Okay, so the punctuality thing always comes up. I always see players show up late, miss something, and it's really clear that those players might be a risk later on if they get pulled onto a team. The helping, the helping others part, I think you can see that it becomes more clear on a field. So you might see someone make a mistake, right? They throw a really bad pass, they miss a tackle, something like that, right? And you want to be the player that pulls that player up and says, hey, hey Susie, don't worry about that. Hey Johnny, let's go. Like, I know you were late today, but let me just walk you through the drill, right? So you want to be that player that every coach like, oh, I want him or her to be on my team, right? They're going to make this team that much better, and therefore I have to make sure I make an offer to that student. The other thing, it's related to being your best self, but it's a little bit about just your appearance. Please make sure that you look professional. And what I mean by that is, again, I don't want to make any student feel like they can't be themselves, but at the same time, if you think about it in the perspective of this is a little bit like a job interview, You wouldn't show up to your job interview for a job, your dream job. You're not going to show up with, like your hair unbrushed and like, I don't know, wearing your gym shorts and a tank top, at an interview at Google, right? You would show up wearing nice business clothes and you would, comb your hair, right? Like you would do those things because you're demonstrating to the people that are interviewing you that you care. And same thing goes for rugby, right? There are ways to look more professional and show that you care by things like, tucking in your jersey, pulling up your socks, having clean boots, um, you know, making sure that you are actually ready to go. So very, very much tied to the thing about being prepared, but, look professional. If you have the times where you're just having a team meeting, but, you're not on the field, maybe pack some, collared polos, some nice pants. You're not always just in sweats and flip flops and stuff. You can look presentable so that when you talk to coaches, they get the feeling you care about this process. Okay. Just going to check in real quick, make sure we don't have any questions. Hope I'm not going too fast for everyone. Okay. Looks like we're doing good. Okay. Another part that I think is really, really important when you're at a camp, make sure that you show that you're coachable. So tied back to what I just said a little bit ago, which is, typically when you show up at a camp, especially if you're young. So I know we've got some, younger players. If you're in 8th, 9th, 10th grade, look, you're not the player they're going to bring in when you're a college freshman, right? They know that. So they're not expecting you to come in 8th grade and blow them away, right? They know you've got a few more years of development. So let's say, for example, you're at a camp and you're going to be coming back year after year. What they want to see is like there's some growth, right? That over time that you can get better, you can take criticism well, and you can kind of apply it right away. So for example, let's say you're doing a drill, we're doing a, like an over under or something like that, right? And a pass comes and you weren't expecting it and you missed the pass or you dropped the pass, something like that. Mistakes are okay. Don't get in your head about it. Move on, do it again, get it right, or keep working on it, right? They want to see the attitude of being able to grow from things, because they know when you get to college, they're going to throw a lot of stuff at you, right? They're going to, have different plays, different, game plans against different teams. And as you probably know, every single game, someone's going to make a mistake. And what we want to see is that you're a player that can come back from that. If you make a mistake on day one and you can't get back from that and you just beat yourself up for the next 3 days of camp, that's not a really great showing of how resilient you're going to be later on as a college player. So again, mistakes are going to happen. Show that you can be coachable. I would even go as far as to say, if you have time, go talk to one of the coaches, right? So if there's downtime, there's a snack break, or there's lunch, go to coach so-and-so and say, hey, you know what? I'd love some feedback about how I've been doing. What are some things I can work on? Players that ask those things always stand out because they're looking to improve, right? They're at the camp. Yes, they want to show their best. They want to do that, but they're also using this as an opportunity to work with, some of the best coaches in the country. So why not use that to your advantage, right? Ask those things. Hey, can you give me some pointers on how I can work on my passing, or what can I do with my kicking to make it stronger so that I can, earn a spot on your team? So having the bravery is the wrong word, but kind of being able to get out of yourself a little bit and ask someone for help, I think is a really big deal. A lot of players that I see at the camps are really nervous. Oftentimes they will attend camp for 2 to 3 years and never say anything. It's kind of a disappointment because the coaches can't help you if they don't know you. So you've got to make an effort for them to get to know you. And I want you to know that the coaches that are there, they want to get to know you. They want you to approach them and talk to them, and they can get to know you as well. So even if you're nervous, I promise you it's something that they want. So, go up to them, like at a dead time, right? You don't want to go in the middle of a drill, but hey, coach so-and-so, I really like that last drill we did, but I was really having a hard time, passing off my left hand. Do you have any exercises that I could do to help me do that? Right. So asking for that feedback is a really, really big deal. All right. Couple of things still tied to the good character piece. I want you to be aware that when you're at a camp, everyone is watching. you're always being watched. And what I mean by this is, yes, you have the coaches that are going to be on staff, right? They're going to be watching you during drills. They're going to see kind of your play style and your skill and your talent, athleticism, things like that, right? So everyone is certainly watching, but other people are too. So if there are current players that are there helping with drills, they're going to be keeping an eye on you. Um, there are athletic trainers, right? When you're getting taped, they're not like spying on you, but they're going to hear what you're saying. I was surprised how often I would just, hang out in the common room at a camp or something, and just because I'm doing work, and you just overhear players talking about things, maybe inappropriate, maybe not so great. And then when coaches ask you about later, like, hey, what do you think about Johnny? Hey, well, I heard Johnny was talking about how he, snuck out last night and was out till 3 a.m. No wonder he was late to the bus this morning, So just know, and this is not to like make you feel like I can't trust anyone, but just know that while all these people are watching and they could potentially say something that, something bad, right? Something that you said or acted or whatever. They can also do the same thing if you do something extra good, right? So if I notice that, I don't know, Jacob is always the one cleaning up that common room after all the other teammates leave, or he's always the one helping with laundry, you can bet I'm going to tell all the coaches, like, that Jacob guy is the best guy here. Someone needs to snag that guy because he is such a great team player and he helps out any chance he can get. So it kind of goes both ways when, everyone, including, referees, if they bring a referee out for a scrimmage, like that person's going to notice if you are the captain for the day, how you interact with them, if you're a good leader, things like that. So just remember that it's like a 3, 4, 5-day interview. And if you're going in for a job interview, you'd want to be at your best, at kind of at all times, pretty much. So everyone's always watching. Okay, at the end of camp, usually what happens is, you kind of get to the last day, that sort of thing. If there's multiple coaches there, it is really worth your time to make sure that, you, number one, you go up, maybe hopefully you've introduced yourself, but, hey, I just really wanted to say thank you for your time. I really learned blank, like that one drill we did with the kick and chase. I realize that what I normally do is I take the long looping angle, and really I need to take a straight angle. I don't know, something, but give these coaches a little bit of feedback too. Don't just say, hey, thanks, I'll see you later. Like just come something bland. Really think about what you learned from this camp or from these individual coaches and thank them for their time. They will feel appreciated. They'll remember you more. That's something to keep in mind when you've got 50, 60, 100 kids. It's hard to remember everyone. So it's easier to remember someone that really makes an effort to say something specific, about what they learned. Get their contact information. When you get home, please send a thank you email. Dear Coach so-and-so, hi, this is Johnny, from New York. I just wanted to make sure to say thank you for your time. Again, I learned so much. If this is a recruiting camp, you can let them know, like, I just wanted to remind you, I am a rising senior. I'm definitely planning to apply to X university. I've already started working on my application. Please let me know if there's anything else you need. I hope to gain your support in this application round. So what you want to do is you don't want to do that a month after the camp. You want to do it pretty close to when the camp ends so that things are fresh in their mind. If it's a recruitment camp, let's say you have the camp at the beginning of August, they're going to start figuring out their rosters probably by the end of August. So you do kind of want to make sure that you touch base with them and, start kind of getting your name out there. And if they do need anything else, if they need a transcript, if they need your test scores, if that's something that they needed, if they want more film, they want your rugby resume, you kind of have all that stuff ready. So when they ask for it, you can send that along. Okay. Now, so those are all things about, as a player, what you should be doing, right? To kind of make the best impression. One piece about attending summer camps that I think often gets overlooked is the idea that when you're at a camp, it's not just a one-way street, right? It's not just coaches evaluating you. It is actually your opportunity as a student athlete to evaluate the school. So when you're there, please don't overlook the fact that that's a really important part of this process. I've had students go to camps in the past. They're like, oh my gosh, this is the place for me. This is where I want to go, and et cetera, right? But when they get there, for whatever reason, maybe the campus is not set up the way they thought. The surrounding city is not exactly what they wanted. It's too rural, it's too urban, or whatever it is. The travel there took longer or was more difficult and complicated than they thought. I've had students just say, you know what, for some reason, the head coach and I just didn't click, right? Like the way he or she coached didn't work for me. I can't imagine myself playing for this person for 4 years. I think it's absolutely fine. And actually, that's the best outcome you could have is if you go somewhere and you realize this is the place for me or it isn't, right? I'd rather you kind of save the heartache and the time of, doing all of this work for a program that you really, I don't know, after a quarter, you're like, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to apply for a transfer. So really making sure that when you're there, take any opportunities they have to do campus tours, even if you've done a virtual one, do a full one, right? Talking to those current players, ask them those questions. Hey, where else did you apply before you decided to come here? Why did you come here? What's one thing you wish you could change about this campus? Get as much information as you can before making a decision. So again, the evaluation process is both ways. Get a sense of, what this coach is really like, right? Some coaches are, really, really loud. Some coaches are really quiet. Some coaches want to spell out a game plan for every single phase of the game. Other coaches really leave it to players to be more creative, maybe, and think of things on their own. So, the camp process allows this great kind of a window into what it would be like for yourself to be a part of this team. Most players that I work with, they'll, once they attend a camp, they usually have a really good feeling in their gut, right? They're like, yes, like totally go along with these other guys or gals, and I could see myself being a part of this team. This feels like a family to me, and this is where I want to be. Others just, again, in their gut, they're like, I really like it, but I don't know, like about this, that, or the other. And if they're really trying to convince themselves that this is the right place, typically that's not really probably going to be the right place for them. So really trust your gut when you're there to see if it's really going to be a good fit for you. The other piece of advice that I would definitely recommend, if they don't already have some sort of way of like a name tag or something, sometimes they do, but usually it's like on the first day. I would think about, if you have shirts, like your practice shirts, if it has a name or it has your school name or something that it's easy for coaches to start remembering you. So if you play for the Lions and every shirt you have is the Lions, they're like, oh, right, that's Johnny. He plays for the Lions, something like that, right? Or if you always wear, like a red scrum cap and red socks, they're like, oh, right, that guy. Because what you'll start finding is there's going to be other players that maybe around the same height as you, same build, or whatever, and similar names. I mean, I went to a camp once where there's, 15 guys all named, Scott, like after a while you're like, wait, which one are we talking about? Is it Scott from Southern California or is it Scott from Connecticut? Like you might have other players of the same name. So if there's little things you can do or wear, like hats are helpful too. Like, okay, that's the one who always wears that like tie-dye cap. It just helps coaches kind of start remembering who you are and start putting that into their process of figuring out who they want to recruit. Okay, so I want to stop briefly and just make sure don't have any questions from anyone in the crowd. I'm actually starting to wrap up. It's gonna be a kind of a quick webinar here for you folks because there's not a lot of questions here. one thing I was going to mention, because we do have some younger students here, you will probably notice if it's a recruit camp, if you are not a rising senior, you may or may not get as much attention, and that's fine, right? It is, in a way, it's good. You get to experience the camp without the pressure of people really, really, really caring what you look like, or, you know, what you do, or that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean it doesn't count at all. It just is kind of like less pressure, right? Like they know you're interested, but they're really going to focus a lot on the rising seniors, because those are the ones that are going to be applying in this year. There's a question about, do you have a list of summer camps that are happening this year? Yes, it is on the website. If you go to, and I'll actually pull it up, and then I will, it's under resources, and you click summer camps, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it in the chat box just so you all can see. So that is the summer camps list. And we are updating it as we hear things and get dates. So for example, you know, like I mentioned, the BYU, the Brigham Young University camps for girls and boys, that one was just announced. So they do have dates up and they have the links up there. So, you know, the more camps, you know, right now, while things are not announced yet, I've left them as to be determined. And as soon as I get more information, I'll definitely post it up there. I would definitely kind of stay in touch, or if there's certain camps you're keeping track of, most of them you can sign up to get on their mailing list to get notices as soon as they're able to be opened, that you can sign up. If it's at a university, typically what's happening is they're waiting until the university allows them to have it, right? So it's not like most of the schools I've talked to, they want to have a camp, right? Camps are a great way to recruit. It's the usual pathway to recruitment. So last year when we weren't able to have it, it certainly made things difficult for the coaches. So trust me when I say they want to have it back. So just kind of keep an eye on it. I do think, you know, it's the end of April now. You know, sometime in May, I think you are going to start seeing more and more camps start being announced. So here's a question. What camp would you recommend for rising female seniors? How long after camp would you expect to receive an offer? That's a really good question. So rising female seniors, number one, and actually I would say this for any player, if it's a school you're really interested in and they host a camp, I would certainly recommend that, right? So if you're looking at Penn State and they have a camp, you would want to go to that camp. And this is pending it fits with your schedule and your budget and all those sorts of things, okay? You know, a Life, a Lindenwood, all those sorts of things. If they have a camp and your child is interested in the school, I would certainly recommend that. From a development standpoint, if you're not necessarily, it doesn't have to be about the college. For a rising female senior, they're the only two camps I know of right now, like Bowdoin's having their polar bear camp. And then ARPTC, they're hosting their residency camp for high schools as well. Now those aren't, with the exception of Bowdoin, the ARPTC one isn't a recruitment one, so there's no like offer piece. But in terms of a college recruitment camp, females and males, usually receiving an offer, an official one, you know, if the camp is in August, like I said, you know, I don't know that it would be right after camp. Usually within about a month, you would hear something, because they would want you, you know, they would want to know if you're applying, and when, you know, if there was an early decision aspect to that, they would want to know if you're going to apply early by November. I have seen offers come late too. So I want you to be aware that because with the exception of those couple NCAA programs, especially for the men, there is no set timeline. You can get an offer at the last day of camp. You could get an offer in November or December, because it's possible they offered players early in the early round that turned them down, and now they're going to a B group. So I think that, you know, we don't have the recruiting calendars as set as other sports. So the kind of the recruiting offers typically are going to happen in that first semester of senior year, so sometime between August and December, but you will see that sometimes you get some offers that trickle in later. What I would really recommend, if you're a current junior heading into senior year, if this is a place you really want to go, be clear about it. Say, this is the place for me, you're my number one. What do I need to do to earn a spot, right? Or if you need help with admission, you can say that. How can I, what is the process for, receiving help in the, admission process? Am I on your list? There is a point where towards the end of the summer, you kind of need to ask. If they're not outright saying it, it's possible that you're probably not high up on their recruiting kind of roster. They would start making those offers if you're kind of in that first group. So if you're not getting asked that, you can ask, right? You can say, you're absolutely my top choice. I'd like to know if I'm going to be on your list of recruited athletes this year. You may not like the answer, but if it were me, I would rather know, right? And have a plan in place of, okay, well, they're not going to support me. Am I still going to apply? Am I going to look at other programs? Things like that. Okay. Those are really great questions. Thank you for that. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I guess it was kind of a little bit of a mini webinar. I hope this webinar was helpful to get you prepared for in a couple months. I have one more question. How do you get noticed by schools who are not hosting camps? What's the benefit of going to a camp that doesn't recruit? Oh, that's a really great question. Okay. So the majority of campuses don't have camps, right? So let's be honest there. We'll start there. Most programs, even if they wanted to, because of COVID this year, they might not be able to have a camp. Now, couple things that I would say, if you're able to get to a camp, that could be helpful. Number one, you get seen by other coaches. Now, the rugby community, as you may or may not know, is very, very small and it is very tight. So let's say you decide, you know what, I am going to go to the Navy men's rugby camp. I don't really want to go to Navy, but I want to go to the camp. It'd be cool just to experience it and check out what it's like to be coached by Coach Gavin Hickey. You go to the camp, make a great impression. You talk to Coach Hickey afterwards and you're like, hey, I want to be honest with you. Like, I don't really think I want to do Naval Academy, but I am looking at blank college. Now, Coach Hickey is well known with lots of other college coaches. He can certainly make a call or send an email, on your behalf and say, hey, I just saw, Johnny at my Naval Academy camp and he is awesome. He told me that you're his top choice. And, I absolutely think, he'd be great, right? So part of the process of, if you do attend a camp that's not being hosted at one of your top choice schools, it's a little bit of just that networking piece, having other people in your corner, not just your high school coach, not just your club coach, it's other coaches that see talent all the time that can speak on your behalf. You should also know that at some camps, visiting coaches come and help out at that camp. So I know in years past at the West Point camp, they did have other coaches from other programs attend. So like the coach from Brown attended the West Point camp as well as some others. So, there might be a question you can ask too is, at your camp, will there be any other coaches attending, just so I'm aware, things like that. So again, I look at camps a little bit like tournaments. The more opportunities you have to show off, the better, right? So camps and especially camp scrimmages, more times than not, they're not great, right? They're not going to be the best game you've ever played in or anything like that. But all it is it gives you a couple more times to show great tackling, right? Consistent tackling, some great footwork. You've got a great cutback. You've got great breakaway speed. Because we didn't have enough games this year for many players, anytime you can be at a camp to get more chances to do that, it's better, right? So that's the benefit, is possibly getting more opportunities to show off, making a good impression on other college coaches that can then talk to other coaches. That is where you can see that hopefully that's beneficial for you. Okay. I don't know if anyone else is submitting any more questions, but with that in mind, I really want to thank you for taking the time to join me this evening to learn about summer camps. You can always reach out to me and see if you want to set up a free consultation, see if it's a fit to work with me. You can email us at info@ruggersedge.com. I'll also send up a follow-up email to everyone with this recording and some other resources to take a look at. I appreciate you and everything you do for your students. And students, I appreciate all the hard work you do in the classroom and on the pitch. And hopefully I will be seeing you out on the pitch soon. So have a nice evening, everyone. Thank you.